welcome to Norwood News. Today is Friday, September 22nd, and I'm your host, Kristen McDonald. It is great to have you with us as we end another week here in Norwood. This week on Norwood News, Dolly Parker retires after many years of service. Mustang sports is in full swing. But first, on Tuesday night, there was another information session for the new MBTA zoning laws. Director of Community Development, Sarah Dixon, explains how the night went and shares a brief overview of the presentation.
Tonight I was thrilled to be asked by Norwood's League of Women Voters to present on the new 3A law, which is generally known as the MBTA Communities Law. It's an amendment to the Zoning Act that requires communities like Norwood that has a commuter rail station to zone for multifamily housing near our transit stations by right. This presentation tonight was really geared towards educating and informing, making sure that folks understand what this new law is and what Norwood is doing about it, the ways that we are going to come into compliance, and how we're incorporating public feedback into that process. So Norwood is in interim compliance. We satisfied the state's first round of requirements to submit preliminary paperwork and our action plan about how we're going to come into compliance. We have until December of 2024 to pass a new zoning bylaw, an amendment to our existing bylaw that would create these new districts allowing multifamily housing. The planning board appointed a task force combined of elected officials, town staff, and residents at large to come up with the new proposed zoning and the locations of that new zoning on the map. And we are right on track to hit our goals. So community participation is ongoing. We had a busy summer with a lot of small group sessions and public feedback. We are continuing our information sessions. We have a survey that's open right now. All of that can be found on our website. And we are in the process of beginning to draft the thing and get it all ready for a presentation to Planning Board, who will have public hearings on it throughout the late fall and winter. We are aiming to bring our zoning to March special town meeting. So there's a lot of interest, a lot of intrigue, a lot of concern, which is fair. Anytime we're talking about changes to our community, Norwood residents, they're engaged and they're concerned, and I think that's a sign that we have a really great group of residents here that care deeply about the town. We've had a lot of great feedback, a lot of participation in our community engagement sessions. Overall, I found that those sessions have been really productive. People are coming and they're talking about their own housing needs and their own stories and how the housing crisis has impacted them. We've talked a lot about what we love most about Norwood and what opportunity this is to be able to improve on the things that Norwood does best and provide ways for people to stay in the community that they care about.
Look out for asteroids, space invaders, ghosts, and Terminators on this week's Living Local, giving us 80s and 90s kids a full dose of nostalgia. Let's go to Hometown Arcade.
If you grew up going to the arcade, dropping rolls of quarters into the machines and having fun for hours, then Hometown Arcade is going to be your new hangout. Located in the Winsmith Mill at 61 Endicott Street, Hometown Arcade is the first of its kind in the Boston area.
I mean, really the kind of the retro arcade concept has really been big in the rest of the country and even in Canada for a number of years now, but it hasn't really caught on too much in Massachusetts, and that's sort of what prompted us to kind of get things started. I mean, the space itself is a really just kind of amazing old building with a lot of history, but folks definitely when they walk in, they're like, wow, this looks like my dream kind of game setup in like the 1980s, or the arcade I used to visit when I was a kid in the 80s, things like that. So those are the things that we love to hear from our customers, and the nostalgia of 80s games and sort of classic games, like that's what we love to hear from our customers.
Whether you just want to play some games for a little while or host an event, Hometown Arcade can accommodate.
So we do a lot of birthday parties, so birthday parties for all different ages, young kids, then like folks that are having like kind of milestone birthdays, like 30, 40, 50 years old and beyond. We've done a number of private events where folks have kind of booked out the entire arcade for different events. Everything from bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs to wedding receptions. I mean, our clients are really like anybody from age 4 to 104. We try to cater to all ages, all different groups. We have games from the 70s all the way up to today. So we really try to have kind of a family environment for lots of different folks of all different age groups.
Another unique feature of Hometown Arcade is that you don't need to go rifling for quarters to play these games.
Yeah, so how it works, so there's this sort of concept of a free play arcade. So what we do, there's a flat fee of $20 plus tax, so $21.25 per person for anyone that's playing the games. If there's parents that are chaperoning, we don't charge for those folks. But it's $21.25 including the tax, and then all the games are set to free play. So we have upwards of 62 games right now on the floor, plus arcade consoles, everything from Atari to PlayStation 5. Those are included as well with the admission fee, and it's good for all day. So folks can leave and come back if they wanted to. But there's no time limits or anything like that, and definitely no quarters involved. The $20 gets you access to all the games.
To learn more about Hometown Arcade, visit their website and follow them on social media.
Our website is hometownarcade.com. We're also on all the different social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. So our website is a good place to start. We do also a lot of engagement on social media. Again, this location is a little bit off the beaten path. It's kind of like a hidden gem, we feel. We love seeing, grandparents, for example, take their, young, grandchildren to the arcade and watching them, show them Atari for the first time, or show them, Pac-Man for the first time, and seeing family members game. It's just a, fun experience. And then, in terms of other things to say about the arcade, it's really just, we're, looking for a fun, kind of family-friendly and also, kind of cost-effective option, for entertainment. There's certainly a lot of different entertainment options in the greater Boston area, but we're looking to try to fill the void of kind of a, price-friendly and family-friendly opportunity for our customers.
Coming up on Norwood News, Ron Marshalsea has the latest on Mustang sports. We say farewell to Dolly Parker, and Joe Delicarpini gives us a fall weather outlook.
Did you know Norwood Community Media has a weekly newsletter? If you are interested in signing up, all you have to do is go to our website, norwoodcommunitymedia.org. Once you're there, scroll to the bottom of the page and click on the Sign Up for Our Newsletter button. All you have to do after that is fill out your first and last name, your email, as well as your zip code. Once you press send at the end of each week, you will have our newsletter in your inbox, ready for you to catch up on all things Norwood.
Dolly Parker has served the Norwood senior community for years, and the Senior Center took some time to honor her. Let's take a look at this heartwarming event.
We have the pleasure of having Dolly, Pardon and myself. We put together a tap dancing class. Unfortunately, I'm not physically able to dance anymore, but Dolly does a beautiful job, and the girls really enjoy it. And we've been doing it for several years now. And she is retiring because her health is not what we wish it would be. So that's what happened, the price you pay when you get older. But she's still going to move on to something else. I'm sure she'll be in the center as much as she is now. we're very fortunate. You know, she used to run the memorial thing. Unfortunately, she's had to retire from that. It'd be a sin if anybody interested in running the memorial thing, come see Carrie, because we really would like to have that back up again next year. But it takes a strong leader, and anyway, Carrie would be the one to talk to. Well, we have full dances actually. Usually we have 8 to 10 girls in a dance. But today, because of the festivities, we didn't want to dance every dance because that's boring after a while for some people, not for us, of course, but for them. So each of the dances, the 3 girls decided they would dance it, and they all did it beautifully, and we're very proud of them. But dancing is, it's not so much that we dance with our feet, we dance with our heart. And I think if anybody's involved with any type of exercise or thing, if you don't have your heart involved, you're not getting it right. It's a wonderful place, and we purchased the sandwiches, but all the girls brought different things, salads and so forth, to go with the sandwiches. It did boomerang a little bit higher than we expected, but nothing's too good for Dolly. Well, you know, it's one thing to say thank you, it's another thing to show thank you. And we say thank you to her all the time. And I really wanted a surprise party, but surprising Dolly is absolutely impossible. So I told her down the road. Originally, the girls wanted to go to a restaurant, hire a room, and do it. But I felt it would be better to do here in the center, and it was beautiful. The director and the different staff people came up to wish her good luck, and different ones have stopped by. And that's what I wanted. I wanted interaction from as many people as possible, and not just our little group, which isn't so little anymore. But yeah, it's very important. I think my father used to say, it costs nothing to say thank you, and you don't say it often enough. I don't care who you are. So this is a big thank you to Dolly.
All of us at NCM wish Dolly Parker a happy and healthy retirement. The Morrill Memorial Library hosted speaker Alexa Rutolo for an information session called Building Bridges, Supporting Refugee Integration in Massachusetts. The Refugee and Immigrant Assistance Center has partnered with the Morrill Memorial Library to discuss how the Norwood community can volunteer to help refugees and immigrants settle in the community.
So the Refugee and Immigrant Assistance Center was founded in 1993. We started resettling refugees in 2001. We work to resettle refugees. We also offer post-resettlement services, and we have a mental health clinic. We have offices in Boston, Worcester, and Lynn. Our goal is to educate the community on the issues facing refugees, the state of affairs in Boston regarding refugees, and how they can help us become a more welcoming community for refugees and immigrants.
And now let's toss it over to Jordan Robinson with school news.
I'm Jordan Robinson. Let's take a look at some activities happening in our Norwood schools. In Norwood High School news, Chartwell's cooked up a special student choice event during all 3 lunches. Director of Dining Services, Eli Norris, explains the concept.
So today in the CAF we had a student choice event. This is where 2 different station concepts go head to head, and the students get to sample the dishes and then also vote on which dish they want to see in the cafeteria. So today it was a mojo chicken served with a mac and cheese, and that went head to head with a tofu tikka masala. The students got to sample both choices, and the winning options will be right in the cafeteria soon. So we love doing these student choice events to give the students the ability to voice their preferences, see what options they want to see in their cafeteria. We're here to feed the kids, and if we're not serving the right foods, we want to change. So this is one of those opportunities that the students have to let us know which items they like or they don't like, and then we modify the menu based on the feedback that we receive.
During the first week at the Coakley Middle School, students in Ms. Serrata's computer class are already coding. 8th graders are learning how to make apps for their phones. Here, they are making a B sound when they touch the B. 7th graders have coded their names to appear on microbits. Thank you for the clips, Ms. Serrata's, and we'll be staying tuned for more exciting things coming out of the middle school computer lab. At the Bulge School, 4th grade students in Miss Salvucci's class work on their teamwork skills in order to save Sam the gummy worm. Students were given their supplies, and the goal was to put Sam through his lifesaver with just the tools provided and without using their hands. It was very challenging, but many teams were successful. They learned a lot about teamwork and formed some new friendships in the end. At the Callahan School, these students are smiling because they earned CARES cards. CARES stands for Cooperative, Active Problem Solver, Respectful, Empathetic, and Self-Control. The Callahan students learn about the expectations of their behavior, and teachers award them with CARES cards. As you can see, they are proud of themselves. Great job, students. At the Willett School, students work in small group centers, have morning meeting routines, and sit in community circles. This is happening throughout the building, and students are loving the learning. Back to school is in full swing at the Prescott. Staff welcomed students with a red carpet entrance on the first day back. Thanks to the PTO, Prescott students had red carpets at the front entrance and car drop-off line, complete with gold stars and fun music. During the first full week of school, teachers worked with students on community building, getting to know you and expectations. In art class, each student created their own piece to a community bulletin board that will be displayed in the cafeteria. It's been an exciting start to the school year, and they are looking forward to a successful school year. Did you hear the sound of the Mustangs trotting down Prescott Street? Most people don't know that the Little Mustangs preschool welcomes over 150 new Little Mustangs to their preschool each year. The boys and girls were excited to see their new classrooms and meet their new teachers and friends. The first week of school was spent playing games to get to know each other, practice sharing and taking turns, as well as learning new routines which will help build the foundation for learning this year and all the years ahead. They even enjoyed a bus ride around the halls of the school as they went on a story walk to hear the story of the little school bus. Children learn most from books when they are actively involved. Not only did this actively help foster story recall, but it also supported number ID as they searched for the numbered pages as they walked around the halls. Learning at the Little Mustangs happens through authentic experiences, and the teachers are looking forward to creating these opportunities for the Little Mustangs this year. Well, that's it for school news. The students are always learning, and thanks to all the educators who share their school news with us. Now, let's go to Ron Marshalsea with the latest in sports news.
I'm Ron Marshalsea, and this is your Sports Update. The football team is at King Philip under the Friday night lights at 7, and then next week they will be at Medfield on Friday the 29th, also at 7. The field hockey team continues their dominance when they went up against Medfield Monday afternoon, beating them 5-2. Ava O'Neill is again showing her skills in the net with 11 saves on the day. Their next game will see the number 11 ranked Mustangs take on number 1 Walpole at home on Friday the 22nd at 4 o'clock. The girls soccer team had 3 games this past week, at home against Milton and Medfield on Friday and Tuesday, and away at Millis on Thursday. The Mustangs couldn't get the win against the Wildcats or the Warriors, but they got the tie against Millis 0-0. Their next game is next Thursday, September 28th, at home against Bellingham. The boys soccer team lost to Westwood last week and Medfield this week, but after a very exciting game that NCM was there for, the boys tied with Millis 1-1 after trailing 1-0 for a good portion of the game. These teams played fast and tough soccer for 80 full minutes. Here's the commentary duo of Joe Pinola and Joey O'Connor with the call on the tying goal for Norwood.
This could be the game here. Prime opportunity for the Mustangs to tie up this game.
Oh, Santos and Oliveira have their hands on their heads hoping that this one goes in.
Oh, man.
It's A.B. Remy sizing up the Millis keeper. He moves in.
And he
puts it through.
He's done it. A.B. Remy with a goal to tie up the game for the Mustangs with, what do you think, Joe? Maybe a minute left in this game?
I tell you, this is wild right now as Remy carries the ball to the middle of the field.
A.B. Remy not only wants to tie, he wants to win. He hustles the ball all the way back to midfield. The Mustangs want to win this game.
The boys will also be facing off with Bellingham next Thursday, but they're traveling there for the 4:15 game. The girls volleyball team took on Millis and got their first win of the season with a 3-0 victory. Serena Elias and Kim Leah both played very well in the Mustang win. They did not get the win over Bellingham, but they have a good matchup with Dedham at home next week, Tuesday the 26th at 5 o'clock. And the golf team beat Millis at home 252 to 273, with freshman Tommy O'Brien shooting a 39 and captain Zach Badger shooting a 41. The team also beat Dedham over at Dedham Polo 253 to 284. Again, Tommy O'Brien and Zach Badger doing most of the damage for the Mustangs. The golf team now sits at 4-2 on the year and will be at the Norwood Country Club taking on Weymouth next Monday the 25th at 3:30. And that is all I have for this sports update. I'm Ron Marshalsea, and Norwood News will be right back after this break.
Commission met on Wednesday, where Du Bois and King updated the Commission on the AIP project as they wrap up the realignment of Taxiway C to be redesignated Taxiway B. In addition, the Commission continued to receive multiple complaints about the noise from airplanes over neighborhoods. The Budget Balancing Committee met for the first time since the spring on Wednesday evening. The committee reorganized, and Board of Selectmen Chair Matt Lane was named the new chair. The committee then reviewed a preliminary draft of the 5-year plan prepared by general managers and accounting offices.
I like to use the term draft unaudited 5-year projection. And at the end of the day, it is just a projection, but we wanted to plug in our expense and revenue categories with some common escalators. We took a little liberty with some of them, certainly up for discussion. We tried to program in some cost areas that we've talked about over the years. It's by no means a policy decision that we're going to go in that direction, but we wanted to, at least I heard from the committee, we wanted to think about some of these things that might be impacting the budget. I can go through any of them and just explain what they are. I don't think we're at a point where we would discuss them tonight. It's really just these are things that have been talked about and this is what the impact would look like. When I refer to the numbers being unaudited, we still need more of an internal review process for accuracy, and some of them are just a guess based on things that collectively have been spoken about over the different years. Example, additional capital, we've talked about small capital going into the budget. That's a dollar figure. It could be higher, it could be lower. The Coakley staffing increase, the superintendent and I have talked, that's just it's a placeholder of a number. So we're at that stage, but wanted to get this out. One thing I want to mention before I turn it over, but we'll take questions, other specific items, if there are areas we want to dive into more. We can go through that. I know some committee members have sent lists of questions. We'll get back to those people in the next week or so. Just my perpetual reminder, we do live under Prop 2.5, so our main revenue source really only goes up 2.5% a year. It's the one we can guarantee on perhaps more than any of the other ones. We still need to technically levy it, but I'll pause there if we want to if there are general questions without, again, I don't think it's worth a detailed dive because some of it is just a guesstimate projection at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, Maya.
So I think this is great to have like a framework to have this discussion, and so thank you so much for putting this together. I think it's great that a lot of, I had made my own list to say, like, I want to make sure these things are all included at some point, and they're all on here, so that's excellent. I would say make a couple of requests about reorganizing this a little bit, and we've talked about this, that facilities really should be its own separate department instead of mixed in with shared costs, because it's a little different. And then there's a bunch of things here that I think just kind of got added to the bottom. They weren't really shared costs, and so I think it'd be helpful if we kind of teased them out, separated them out as like, these are general government, these are school, these are, and just kind of.
We could have like a projected increase. Yeah, we just threw it in there to just keep the spreadsheet balanced.
Right, no.
Another category.
Yeah.
Right. So I just think, a little rearranging there would be helpful.
You're talking about things like the dispatch and the Coakley staffing. Well, that would actually end up in the budget, wouldn't it? This is just to show.
Right, exactly. So that's what I'm saying.
There's going to be
those
an unexpected increase.
Right, those aren't going to be shared costs. They would, so just kind of like reshuffle the lines a little bit.
We'll have something projected school and.
It's highlighting us at this point, though, that these are new things that we
Exactly.
don't want to be forgetting about for the future.
Right, right.
The board will continue to meet on a monthly basis to prepare for the upcoming budget season. The next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, October 18th. The school committee met remotely on Wednesday night, discussing the fall town meeting warrant requests. They also reminded the community of the public forum that will take place next Tuesday evening in the NHS auditorium starting at 7 p.m. From unprecedented rain this summer to heat waves in September, everyone is asking what is going on with our weather. Joe Della Carpini from the National Weather Service gives us an outlook for the fall and explains what is happening with El Nino.
Hi, everybody. My name is Joe Dolly Carpini. I'm the meteorologist and science and operations officer with the National Weather Service in Boston Norton, also a Norwood resident, and here today to talk about the outlook for fall of 2023. So before we do that, just wanted to give a quick overview of our summer weather pattern. I don't think it's much of a surprise that it was an overly wet and cool summer. And here's the reason why. If we look on the left, this is kind of the steering flow of the atmosphere up at about 18,000 feet or so. And you can see there was a fairly persistent, what we call a trough or a dip in the jet stream over the eastern United States, while there was more of a bump or what's called a ridge in the west. And no doubt, this always leads to wet and cool weather when we see this kind of pattern. But if you remember, in the desert Southwest, they had a lot of extreme heat, even over into the plain states much of the summer. And that's the reason why this big ridge really dominated out in the west, while, again, this persistent, what we call a trough here in the east, really led to some cool and wet weather. And on the right-hand side, you can see the blue and purple shading indicating that this was fairly abnormal, really not something that we normally see in the summer. So no doubt it led to an overly wet and cool summer here in New England. And here's a look at our rainfall here in Norwood. And again, not much of a surprise that we were above normal. The gray line represents kind of the average rainfall, and that's a 30-year average. And the green curve shows the observed rainfall through much of the summer. So starting in June, you can see we're fairly close to normal right along with the green and the gray line. But then as we got into the latter part of June and especially July, you'll see this curve gets much, much higher than the gray line and even into August. So we had so many rounds of showers and thunderstorms throughout the summer that we ended up well above average. And I don't think that's, again, much of a surprise to anybody. The lawns did well. The gardens did well. For the summer months, which we consider June, July, and August for climatological purposes, you can see the total in Norwood was just a touch over 20 inches. And our normal really is about 15 inches. So we were running nearly 5 inches above normal for the summer, which is pretty impressive. And certainly a change from last year when we had such severe drought conditions throughout the region. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the fall and even a little bit of sneak peek into the winter. And our main driver is expected to be El Nino. If you remember, about this time last year, we were talking about La Nina, which is a cooling of the ocean waters in the Pacific off the coast of South America. And we expected a transition to El Nino in the spring, and that certainly happened. And right now, we're actually into El Nino, which is a warming of the water. It's actually the opposite of La Nina. So we now have warmer than average water temperatures off the coast of South America, and that does have some influence on the jet stream throughout the world. So that's going to be our dominant weather pattern as we go through the fall and the winter and possibly into much of next year as well. So as I mentioned, El Nino has emerged. This is a look at the sea surface temperatures, kind of the difference from normal in August and September. And you can see certainly some warm red colors here off the coast of South America across much of the central and eastern Pacific. So that's indicative that El Nino has developed. And as we go through the fall and the winter, you'll see most of our climate models show it persisting. Anything above this black line is El Nino, and below it is La Nina. There is one lone model or few that show La Nina developing next year. But as we go into the fall, September, October, November, this line here, all of our climate models show El Nino persisting and maybe even strengthening a little bit. And another climate model here on the right shows a pretty high chance that El Nino is going to persist into next year. So again, that's going to be our main climate driver as we head through the winter. Now here's the official fall outlook from the National Weather Service. This contains the month of September, October, and November, which we define as our climatological fall. And you can see a fairly high probability here of above average temperatures throughout much of New England. So there's pretty high confidence that it's going to be warmer than normal. Now, this doesn't mean, 80s and 90s. Our normals are getting cooler as we head later in the year. So maybe more like 60s, maybe a few days of 70, some very nice fall weather. And on the right-hand side, not much of an indication that we're going to see precipitation above or below average. There's really nothing leaning us either way. So for now, the forecasters are kind of equal chances of either drier or wetter than average weather. And just as a reminder, here in the Northeast, our weather patterns tend to occur in cycles of weeks, not really months. So these seasonal outlooks, while they are valuable, they really don't give us the whole picture as to what we can expect for an entire season. So we have a little more confidence in our weather patterns week to week, as opposed to kind of months at a time. And for those who are interested, we'll give you a little sneak peek of our winter outlook, December, January, and February. And this really follows the El Nino pattern for the most part, with above average temperatures across most of the northern tier of states and really wetter than average weather along the Gulf Coast. We tend to see a storm track that emerges from the Gulf Coast and off the southeast coast of the United States during El Nino years. Now, for snow lovers, that can be good for us because some of these storms will eventually come up the East Coast if everything comes together. And can give us some heavy snow. Other times, the storm track stays a little bit to the south, so cities like Washington, D.C., Philadelphia can be favored more for heavy snow than us. In those situations, we tend to just be kind of dry and cold. So we'll kind of see how things pan out. As I mentioned, our weather patterns occur in cycles of weeks, so we can usually tell about 2 to 4 weeks ahead of time how things are setting up, but it does vary throughout the winter. So again, above average temperatures for the winter, not meaning, 60s and 70s, but, probably some days of 40s, maybe a 50-degree reading here and there. And again, no real signal as to above or below average precipitation as we extend this through the winter. But we'll take a look at the winter outlook in another presentation. So just to summarize, we experienced a cooler and wetter than normal summer, and that was due to that really persistent trough over the eastern United States. As I mentioned, El Nino has developed. It's forecast to persist through at least the upcoming winter, if not longer. And this tends to favor above average temperatures in New England and either near, maybe slightly above average precipitation, again, depending upon that storm track that we see. And for those who are interested on fall foliage, it's not something that we really do as meteorologists, but we always get questions. So we always have the answer in our back pocket. The fall foliage really should feature brighter colors than it did last year. When we see wet weather in the summer, followed by drier and cooler weather in the fall, that tends to bring out a lot of color. So the drought years tend to really inhibit the fall foliage. But this year, if we do end up drying out in the fall here, I would expect to see some really nice color throughout much of the region. So that's some good news. So let's look at our fall 2023 outlook. Again, my name is Joe Dolly Carpini, meteorologist at the National Weather Service, also a Norwood resident. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to send me an email. It's joseph.delicarpini@noaa.gov. Thanks for listening.
Well, that's all for Norwood News. To stay up to date with Norwood Community Media, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're going to leave you with a list of upcoming events happening in Norwood during the month of September. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend.